SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity. What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. My name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps, and I'm joined in Grandma's Couch Studio by the illustrious and decorated individuals.
That Jeff guy over there that turns on things
goat.
on the computer.
The GOAT. And a couple people have recently said they appreciate hearing the GOAT themselves now. That was silent for many years or for many episodes.
Yeah, I was. And then,
And,
as a joke, I made it audible, and we got such good feedback. I just left it.
Yeah, right. And people like to hear the GOAT, except for the GOAT. I wanted to hear the GOAT, and it didn't happen.
No, it's supposed to automatically do it. And in test runs this morning, it was working. So I
Weird.
don't know why it didn't, but whatever.
Okay. So
but
we have
yeah.
Jeff, the Italian stallion.
And then over there, you've got the maddest mad scientist, Scott Brown.
Yes, the dash assembler and bolt cleaner this morning.
Dash assembler and disassembler last week. There was
Yes.
lots of dash assembly and disassembly
Well,
on multiple Jeeps.
I was like, I could literally work on dashes side by side, so I'll do that.
Yeah, that's fun. Makes for a fun picture. For those of you, tuning in live, which there are quite a few, already jumped into the comments. But for those of you listening in your ear holes across the globe, we appreciate you making this specific podcast a priority. And two, what you cannot see is our limited edition summer T-shirts that Scott and I are currently wearing. There's also one seated on that slick Cherokee Chief bench seat that Scott sits on. And this season's limited edition merch for, specifically Sims Family Jeeps SFJ 4x4 is kind of a take on the race industry. And as Davey has conceptualized this little campaign, he's calling it the slowest team on dirt theme. And you can make that appeal to crawl ratios on dirt or off-roading, or you can
Change
make
it however you
yeah,
want.
you can interpret that however you'd like to consider, folks.
I'm gonna jump into the comments here. Nate says good morning. Joe O'Brien says morning. Bill McWilliams says good morning, guys. Billy Joe says good morning, guys. Joe O'Brien claims he beat Nate, but in our screen, Nate was first. So I don't know what to tell you there. Then we've got Jeannie saying good morning, Bantam time. Nate saying, don't worry, Joe, you can be first for the next 2 weeks while he's in Alaska.
Ooh, good for you, Nate.
Yeah, you're still tuning in, I assume. Then we've got Yvonne saying good morning. And then Jeannie saying, I heard it, referring to the GOAT. It was just delayed is all. And then Joe Smith saying, Indiana Joe here.
Good morning to all of you. And thank you so much for tuning in this morning. The screen is frozen, Jeffrey. Not that sure how that's going to affect
So the
things.
Savage decided that we were going to try something new, and he purchased a different method to connect the camera. And I was concerned that it was timing out, and that was what I was referencing this morning. So if the Savage is listening, the camera is timed out again.
Mayday,
I don't know if
Savage.
that means the same for our viewers. But as of right now, our camera is absolutely frozen on our end. Good morning, Daddy Jeep. I see you in there.
So we're going to attempt to reach the Savage.
He's-
Here he comes.
here he comes.
Here he comes.
There's that delay in the processing for the end user. So
And still no screen. Still
frozen.
Still frozen. This is the joy of shooting in front of a live
is. And-
non-studio audience.
And for those that don't know, we have changed something since the computer died. Every podcast, we have changed
Why?
something. Because we just like to live dangerously.
God forbid that anybody actually tuned in the last couple episodes. They're like, this bunch of clowns. I can hear you fine. You're just doing it without your lips moving. Ha, ha, ha. All right, Joe, I appreciate that feedback. And good morning, Bob. We've got a ton of people on making this specific podcast a priority for us and for them. And here we are changing things once again. That makes me...
Can't get better intro to our topic, though.
You're right. You're right. That is... So we're going to keep going while... The Italian Stallion and the Savage attempt to troubleshoot this to the best of their ability. And for those of you who normally join us live, well, this is the beauty of
being live.
And as far as, what your experience is joining us live, you're getting to experience what our normal podcast listeners get.
Yes.
So today's topic, well, first of all, I wasn't quite done talking about our really cool shirts and the slowest team on earth. Or on dirt, slowest team on dirt. But
We're back.
Yep, electrical issues. Technical issues, folks.
Yes.
Please stand by. So,
Wow, Daddy Jeep says, I don't see you. Maybe not such a bad thing.
woo, there it is.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's actually probably pretty accurate. That's I had a football coach in high school, and he always said I had a face for radio. That's what he.
You're welcome.
And there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
So, anyways, today's topic, and so look for our merch shirts at the shows and events that are coming up. Also, if you are so inclined, this is intended to be our summer season, just like. If you've been following us long enough, we had our construction shirts years ago. We had our signature, our limited shirts. We did some podcast shirts a few years back. We always try to bring something kind of new and fresh. If you're here to rep the brand and the podcast and Jeep services or retail experiences, whatever it might be. So the slowest team on dirt shirt you'll be available this summer 2025. Now, today's topic, our intention is to talk about don't be that guy on the trail. And it has a little bit to do with our technical issues, our stuff today. It's
wow. Okay.
Is the concept of extending a little bit of grace and kindness in things that are pertinent to the Jeep community.
Yep.
And so whether or not that is actually out on the trail.
I'm going to pivot back to comments because Joe Smith just says, remember that you can always tell when a politician is lying when his lips are moving. So I can trust you more because our lips weren't moving.
That's fair.
We're not politicians, though.
That's true. That's speak. I was trying to say, like, I always tell people, like, I'm not a mechanic, and that's what makes me more relatable to the average Jeep enthusiast. I'm an enthusiast first and foremost, and so that does then, kind of dictate how we approach things. I am curious, and I'll just share with everybody on air and listening in their ear holes. Did we fix the issue, or are we going to have to kind of constantly pivot back to a frozen screen?
We switched back to the old system.
Okay.
So. Yes, the issue is fixed for now.
For now.
We will have more issues in the future if Davey doesn't figure out his
We will have more issues in the future because we're the ones doing it.
It's a given. It's fine.
That's right. That's right. And
expect the unexpected.
That's right.
Understanding some of these cliches is arguably exactly what we're talking about. And as I think it's a nice tie-in and a fair way to kind of kick off what I would call the Jeep season that is so kind of rooted here in the northeastern portion of the United States. And so ultimately, if we just talk about quadrants of the United States, we have the West, we have the East. Despite the fact that the landmass is wildly different, the Mississippi is our dividing line. We have the Northwest, the Southwest, the Northeast, and the Southeast. And realistically, folks, much of the industry kind of considers the fact that somewhere around April-ish, you get the Southeast kind of kicking off with Jeep Beach or so, but then you also have the Southwest, and you kind of have this initial start of the Jeep season. By June-ish, much of the Jeep and 4x4 community on a large scale moves to the northeastern part of the United
Yeah.
States, which is one of the things that makes this podcast and our business so fortunately unique. Is I consider us to be kind of in the heartbeat, the breadbasket of all of this Jeep culture, as far as off-roading, organized off-roading, and shows, right? And of course, coming up very soon is going to be Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival. But after that, you're going to have a couple different Ocean City Jeep Weeks. You're going to have PA All Breeds Jeep Show. You're going to have Put in Bay. You're going to have.
I'm just gonna, since you said very soon, I'm gonna remind you it is this weekend.
We
are
is
days away.
We are days away. We're going to have Toledo Jeep Festival. We're going to have Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. I mean, once it pops off with Bantam in this area, the big shows
it's off
start
the
rolling.
races. And that kind of made me think, during most Bantams, that's like our first sweated out show.
Sure.
Like, we're still getting used to the summer weather. It usually rears its head for this. So suddenly things are hot. So
Yes.
your temper's hot, your Jeep's hot, you're hot. You're having a hard time dealing with stuff. So this is just a reminder that don't be that guy, because everybody's out there hot. Everybody's trying to have fun. Everybody wants to do the same thing. We just got to recognize that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And ultimately, there are a number of events or opportunities somewhat smaller, right, that have already started, and there's car crushes and meet and greets and small obstacle courses and whatnot. But
all of
as and a lot of cool Jeep events that have already transpired to this moment. But as we go out into the world, and it just kind of gets more densely populated, and it gets hotter, you know,
Yes.
quite literally
Which is
for
why
folks around
where
here.
transient shows go up towards the north, because it gets almost unbearably hot in like Arizona,
at this point in time. Yeah, absolutely.
Florida, that
right.
kind of
so
stuff.
that southern shows, that's why we're not having those southern shows in June, July, August necessarily.
Yep.
And it makes me think of if it made national news, and so I think it merits talking about it. There is a particular event that happens down along the Gulf Coast, down south of Galveston, Texas. And this particular event and I'm just going on rough mations here, folks, for about 5-7 years has become increasingly more tasteless and quite frankly, a black eye on the Jeep community as a whole. Now, I say that I'm being real forthright, real honest. And if somebody wants to come on and try to communicate to me as to what you think is possibly going on down there, I'm here for it. But
it's hot.
and that's the thing, is that it happens at a time where there's a bunch of college students on college break.
Yep.
There were 300 arrests, I understand, from some of the
Over
reporting
300.
Arrests that happened this year alone. The majority, 60% or better, were individuals 18 to 25.
Yep.
And I can't help.
They wear it like a badge of honor.
And they wear it like a badge of honor, which is just as quirky to me.
Yes.
Right. And the intention of today's conversation is not necessarily to talk about the negatives of our industry, but to accentuate the positives. But I think we have to juxtapose what we're trying to work against in this conversation.
100%.
Right. And so this idea that these individuals are going down there with specifically Jeeps, but 4x4s of all sorts, and they're going there with the intention to stir the pot and to get hot and bothered and to get in trouble is not okay in my book.
100%.
And it's this weird world of our culture of Jeeping that we love meets a little bit of Mad Max, meets some form of Burning Man, right?
Yes.
Where we have this expectation that somehow we're lawless because we're out in the sand dunes of the Gulf. And that
Right.
just, at some point in time, we have to be self-conducting, right? We have to look at ourselves and go, okay, am I being a good steward of the best possible human experience and of the Jeep community?
Correct.
Or am I just out here being a jerk?
Correct.
Right? And so I think that there is a note of this conversation. Don't be that guy to say, like, if you're just out here to stir the pot, maybe you need to look at yourself in the mirror.
Yes.
I understand that accidents happen and tempers flare and you might be at your breaking point. I think there's a lot of people at their breaking point.
100%.
And so how do we mitigate that as Jeepers supporting Jeepers?
So I think one of the best steps is to sit back and remember where you came from. And you have to kind of remember when you started off-roading, when you started doing the Jeep stuff and you didn't know a bunch of stuff. And yeah, I'm speaking more to our veteran people in the industry, but you have to remember you didn't know what you didn't know before.
Correct.
And you didn't know how to trail. You didn't know how that kind of stuff. So if you're in line and you see someone that is obviously learning, have some patience. Let them do that. Maybe go up and be a kind, gentle voice and be like, hey, if you would like, you could try it this way. This is something I've dealt with, and this is how I've found it works good for my vehicle. Now you've made a friend. Where if you go and now you're a jerk. I know that's gonna be a soundbite, probably.
It's absolutely going to be a soundbite. I'm making that a button.
You're a jerk.
So, Chris is in the comments here saying, let's not forget giving thanks to the Bantam volunteers as some give all. And that is important. If you're at an event, the people that are putting on the event are there trying to make it so that you have a good time. So show appreciation. Be thankful to them. Bring us steaks at our booth, things like that.
And you have to remember, most of the volunteers are volunteers because they enjoy off-roading. They enjoy having the show. That is why they're doing that work. They're not like getting paid buckets of money. They're there because they want to have this experience.
You know what's wild? I was obviously a conversation I had with an event organizer recently, and is that actually specifically Bantam is like 60% of their volunteer base, because there's obviously it's a massive undertaking, and of course that's just local and it's coming up in a couple days, and that's why we mention it. But this goes for just about every show otherwise that I'm familiar with. Toledo Jeep Festival is one as well. They're actually just locals who just want to see the event successful for their local community.
Yeah, they may not even know a thing about Jeeps.
Right.
They're just there to help. And it's unbelievable the amount of volunteers that they have to run an event that size.
Yes.
Right.
And that's more reason to give that appreciation.
Well, and again, it translates over to every kind of festival,
Correct.
every kind of event that we're all going to be part of this summer.
Yeah.
Is when you have that person of authority, it's not like they just go from show to show being an authority. They're an enthusiast. They are excited about this, and they want you to be excited and be able to enjoy it. Therefore, they are doing the work.
Yeah.
And you have to appreciate that. And yes, there's always 500,000 opinions on how something can be done. But they're the one doing it. So you have to give a little bit of grace.
Well, and not only that, but like you said, there's 5,000 opinions on how it can be done. And a lot of these events that are successful have taken that advice from their people that are coming to it. And they are making changes every year to improve and try to do better. But
Like
they can't
changing
tailor to everybody.
Like changing a podcast every single episode.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and I do think there's value in your approach, right? Because I feel like, we oftentimes talk about some cliches, death by 1,000 cuts.
100%.
I oftentimes on the leadership end of things, I talk about people being needled every day in their human experience. We feel it at the grocery store. We feel it while we're driving along the road, understanding that we're all bringing some different perspectives or some different experiences with us to whatever experience it is. But understanding that there's some form of unification that creates an equal or standardized playing ground that we're all there for. And that's what I think is so unique about the Jeep community. I had the opportunity this weekend to talk with a vehicle enthusiast And this is an individual who has some classic cars, has gone up to Woodward Dream Cruise, worked at AutoZone in a part-time capacity just because he loves cars. He's actually an educator full-time, but loves cars in the automotive world. So he worked at AutoZone for 5-6 years or whatever. And he was just like, man, you guys, you Jeep people, you're really dedicated. You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of a different breed. And I was like, that's true.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's that unification that brings together a diverse group of people. And that diverse group of people are present at shows. And it's something that I was keenly aware of when we started traveling, 12, 13, 15 years ago to these different shows. Because geographically, where we went in the country, there was a representation of the local population.
100%. And it's kind of cool, actually. You get to see a little bit of a different way of doing things. Maybe there's a little bit different model of rig. Maybe there's a common modification because there's a club and there's somebody, again, a volunteer, someone that's helping mold people in that, and they're like, hey, you can do it this way. So there's a trend that you can see. Like, I remember going to York.
I can't wait to talk about York.
And there were full sizes everywhere. And we're like, there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one. And we're go to other shows, and there's like full size, or maybe I'll be nice to say 5 full sizes.
Right.
There was like 25 full sizes at York that one year.
Which I think is funny because our friend Zach Heisley is from that direction.
Yes.
And he's a full-size guy.
100%.
He's relocated himself over to the Toledo Mommy area.
Yep.
And he stands to be a little bit of an island over there, in my opinion, you
Yes.
know? But he's originally from that area, and that was a big pocket. But my experience is, while I agree with you with the full sizes, I remember that first year at York, and I don't think you were with me that year, but my sister was there, and one of the things that stuck out to me was this kind of this East Coast Jersey influence.
100%.
And so there was a lot of this, what I would consider to be a little bit over the top accenting, and maybe not the functional rigs that I wholly appreciate. And I remember being a little frustrated because, of course, the TJ was still one of the predominant vehicles at the show. We weren't so far into JK production that it was prevalent. The TJs were there, but they were these. I mean, they stick out to me. They were just totally blinged out, and they were the high center of gravity lifts that I always kind of talk against with, impractical tires that had no travel, but lots of lights and lots of sound and so on and so forth. And I really struggled with that initial start of the show because I felt like the manner in which oftentimes classical Midwesterners communicate with each other, which is a little more chummy. Everybody knows the Midwestern goodbye, which takes a half an hour to leave.
Yes.
Right? I felt like when I got closer to the Jersey area and I started associating with a number of folks, it was a little more curt. It was a little more short. It was a little more pointed, right? And then all of a sudden, and I mean, like, I had this unwinding on Friday after the show, and I was frustrated, right? I was frustrated. I was sour. I was like, I'm never doing this show again, blah, blah, blah. And my sister kind of helped me unpack a little bit. And she was like, well, tell me, so-and-so and this and that, and how much money do you think we made, and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, like, she unpacked it, and it was just that I wasn't aware of our cultural differences.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you, folks, and I'm just going to call a spade a spade. We looked the same. You know what I mean? He had a little more of a... I didn't have the goofy faux hawk at the time, but they did. And, it just wasn't the flat brim West Coast feeling. But they were like... She was like, I think they're just actually appreciating. They're just appreciating you. It's just how these folks, you're cashing out, you're talking Jeep. It's just, it doesn't have that same warm fuzzy feeling that you're used to.
Well,
that doesn't mean it's wrong though.
Right. And depending on where you go, if you go down into like the Carolinas and stuff, like South Carolina specifically, things slow down.
Sure.
Yes.
They're a much slower pace. And if you're used to a fast pace, you're like, oh, can we just move on? And it just takes time.
It just takes time.
Whereas get up here, sometimes if you're from down south, things are moving so fast, you feel like it's
You're overwhelmed.
Yep.
100%. And at the end of the day, you have to remember, like, they're driving a Jeep, you're driving a Jeep. Yes, maybe they like big wheels and short sidewall tires, and you are over here on your 15-inch with your giant sidewalls. You're all driving Jeeps. You're all in there for the same reasons. Maybe you have different opinions. That's what makes this fun, though. If it was in there and every single Jeep was the same, man, that'd be a boring show. And also,
Would be a Ford.
and this is just because I always kind of gravitate towards the vintage side of things, and because I see a lot of grumpy old men on the interwebs. If you have a cool old Jeep and someone younger comes up and gives you a duck, smile, take the duck, and give it to your grandchild.
Yep.
This is your call to action. You don't need to throw it at them. You don't need to yell about it. You don't need to talk about them touching your Jeep, blah, blah, blah. Just take the duck, give it to a young person. If you don't have a grandchild, give it to the next young person that walks by.
Put it
Make
on
them-
another Jeep. But just
Make them excited to be at the show. It's a little bit of an axe to grind for me because with the 36 ownership, I hear all the time with really old people, nobody's interested in the old stuff anymore. Nobody wants to do this. Be the reason they're interested. Pick up the little kid, put him in your seat, let him pretend he's driving.
with permission. Don't
With
just pick up
permission.
random
Yeah,
kids.
don't pick up random
I was
kids.
gonna say Scott's picking up random kids all of a sudden. Folks, we interrupt this message for a very important PSA from Simpson Family Jeeps SFJ 4x4 owner Neil Simpson. We do not condone. We do not condone picking up random children and putting them in your vehicle.
One of the most fun.
Off the freaking rails again.
One of the best memories I have
You may not offer candy or ducks or free Jeep parts.
to lure them in your Jeep. Anyway,
Oh boy. We went there.
one of the best.
I just got lured into a Jeep. I'm not going to lie. Free Jeep parts, I'm in there.
One of the best memories I have of taking my children to a big event is there was a guy with a really tricked out race car. And my son was interested. He was short. He couldn't see in the window. And they're like, open the door. Go ahead and have a seat in it. You know, put the helmet on, that kind of stuff. My kid was having the time of his
Yes.
life. And most people don't get that experience. That's all I'm trying to express is if you see somebody interested, take the time to talk to them, make them make you the reason they are interested in something old.
I can't agree with you more. I had the opportunity. One of the things I did do this weekend was Conneaut has started to host a big rig truck show.
Mm-hmm.
And because everybody knows I'm a frustrated
Well,
trucker
I
at
was
heart.
gonna say, are we sure Connie's doing this, or did you set this up?
No,
you
I
set
did.
this up because you're like, I have a big rig, I want to show it off.
I'm actually not allowed at the show. My big rig is too new. I'm actually a little butthurt about it. I'll be honest with you.
He's in the uncomfortable stage of the big rig where it's not new enough to be cool over here.
And it's
but
not old enough to fit in with the
enough to be
vintage.
over there.
Yeah.
So he's kind of on the
I
island.
am, yeah. I'm actually not allowed to attend this
You're
show.
that awkward teenager right now.
I am. I am in the awkward teenage stage, and I've talked to the event organizer, and he has politely poo-pooed me. He was that guy. No, he really wasn't. But at the age range of my truck, it would be actually one of the newer rigs there, and he really wanted to keep it in a pre-era of 70s 80s era of truck. But realistically, there's some absolutely stunning big rigs there, and then there is some hot rods, right? Hot rod big rigs, and you have the kind of the classic car mentality where folks are sitting around in their lawn chairs, and I can't stand that. It's just nothing just bores me to death more than that.
Yep.
And they want to talk about the minutia, but it has no pertinence on my kid. It doesn't make my kid fall in love with it, right?
Right.
Yep.
And since I'm a child at heart, it's hard for me to fall in love with it. But there's a bunch of survivors, right? There's a bunch of survivor rigs that just rolled in off the highway. They're not polished up. They're real trucks. And sure enough, with parents' consent, Scott, there was a guy who was very explicit and was like, yeah, you want to get into it? Like, have you ever sat in a cab over that's,
Yeah.
you know, blah, blah, blah. And my son was like, no. And I was like, heck yeah, you're going to sit in that truck. That is cool.
Yeah.
And the guy was able to coach up my son to safely get into the truck and sit there. And I was like, that experience
100%.
is what then makes our community of automotive enthusiasts unique. When I took Old Blue down to the Dayton, Cincinnati Off-Road Indoor Expo with Muddy Buddies,
Yep.
and I took Old Blue, and we had the opportunity to be in the convention center lobby. It was one of the first vehicles that you encountered when you came into the convention center. And I just opened it up, and I encouraged people to jump in the Jeep,
We
take
ma-
pictures in
We
it.
played Please Touch Me.
Please
sign.
touch this Jeep.
Yeah.
And
Right?
I'll be honest with my kids. I'm not a car guy like you guys are. I don't collect cars. I don't have that.
Yeah,
My kids. My
But don't
kids-
worry, we'll read your shirt towards the end.
Yeah, I
here.
know.
Okay.
That's not necessarily auto projects, but
Right.
my kids, for them to get excited over a car isn't as common as for like your kids to get excited. And this story still stands out in my head, and this was a few years ago.
Yes.
A Lamborghini with an
Oh.
electric lime color pulled up next to us at a Sheetz,
Okay.
and my daughter Lily is just oogling it, staring out the window of the Jeep at this Lamborghini, and the guy gets out in our windows, or I don't even know.
I was just saying, were your doors even on? Knowing you, you're probably stripped naked.
I think the doors were even off. But it was, he's like, oh, do you want to sit in it? And is that okay? I was like, heck yeah. So I have a picture of her sitting in this electric lime green Lamborghini at a Sheetz, and it made her day.
That's so cool.
And that's the kind of thing you should be doing. Not, oh yeah, this car has this many horsepower, this many things, blah, blah, blah. The kids don't care
Right.
about that.
Right.
No.
Right. And, you know, and that's, and the thing is, it's an extension of adults though, too. And it goes back to that, that new enthusiast who's excited about their Jeep. They've dreamed about it for years, and now they're in a position. It doesn't even need to be a new 2025.
No.
It's new to them, and they are excited, and they are in love with their Jeep, no matter what vintage, what year, what model it is. Don't be the person who puts their light out. You know
Yes.
what I mean? And like, it needs to come up and be like, well, this is what's wrong, and this is what's wrong, and this is what's wrong, you know? Because that does happen.
I'm just going to put it out there. Use a firefighter model. Everybody loves to get in a fire truck. It's because we let you go in and play with all the fancy things and not actually break down what everything does.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going back to, yes. Yes.
Just go in and just show it off and have it be fun.
And
100%.
and be, you know, kind of that open or egalitarian approach to everybody to say, hey, this is about the fun. Yes, it is a tool for me. Yes, it is I've invested heavily in it.
Right.
You know, firefighters maintain and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, for the most part, it's my opportunity to share what I find cool about it with you as well.
I was going to say, all of us would still, in a heartbeat, jump in and start playing with buttons in a fire truck. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's just a cool thing. But if you were like the old car community with your fire truck, no, you can't touch it. This is what it does. Like,
Yeah.
And I think
it wouldn't be cool anymore.
And I think that we have that the propensity for that among the Jeep community to be like, oh well, mine articulates this much, or it's this rugged, it's
the
this
flex model where you're not actually flexing your Jeep, you're flexing on your
fellow Jeeper.
yes.
Yes.
And that's foolishness, because how do they know to want to do what you're doing?
Right.
Do you want them to be like, oh, everybody with that type is that kind of way? No, you want them to be like, well, you know what? I strive to be like that guy.
Right.
That's actually when you're cool.
Or
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're willing to drive around a 1940s era car or Jeep or truck or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not ever going to kind of get to that point myself.
Yep.
But I want to appreciate that in you. And if you're a jerk about it, well, then I'm no longer kind of appreciative.
Right.
I'm amazed how many people gravitate to the early model civilian and military Jeeps, despite the fact they'll never own one. They
Yes.
can appreciate them. They can value them. But I think that's one of the things about a lot of the military reenactors, specifically the ones that attend Bantam, right? That's just specific to them. They are some of the kindest Jeep vintage people that I have been acquainted to, because they are so passionate about their Jeeps and their military history. They want you to be passionate about it as
And
well.
they'll go as far into the depth of it as you want, but also know when to stop.
Right.
Yes.
Now, I've never gone down to their encampment and really got, one-on-one with a ton of them, but the ones who come by our booth, the ones who drive by, who want to share with us, I mean, we have D-Day here in Conneaut, Ohio, which, again, if you are any type of history buff, I encourage you. It has the capacity to be a once-in-a-lifetime reenactment experience. If you do nothing else, come to this one because it's so period correct and so cool.
To the point that we had Davey cut footage from Saving Private Ryan, right? And you almost couldn't tell the difference.
Almost couldn't tell the difference. And so, again, tens of thousands of people invade for a specific weekend. I can either choose to be the negative Nancy online or in person, or I can choose to go, hey, for this temporary inconvenience,
100%.
my community is benefiting immensely.
And not just the financial benefit. Children are being exposed to it. It's making it more real for people. It's making them realize some of the stuff.
At Bantam, at D-Day, at wherever, our veterans are benefiting because our veterans who have served and given so much of themselves and sacrificed so much are able to come back and be honored in a capacity that is relevant to the average citizen.
Yep.
Nobody really has the true scope. It's like driving the vintage vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Until you actually get to ride one, until you actually get to go for a drive, you don't know how bumpy they are. You don't know how lack of horsepower they have,
Yeah,
They're
right.
cool, but you don't have an appreciation of it until you kind of wear those shoes.
Yep.
And these events, whether it be on the trail or at a show, give us that opportunity to come together and have that. Now, I always tell this story. It's one that I'm particularly fond of, and I think I've shared it on the podcast before. It was opportunity as SFJ was in its glow up, and I was able to travel again. My wife and I took our kids to Idaho to visit some friends, some backwoods stuff out there, and we were on a plane flight. And at that time, SFJ 4x4 was Holy, Scott, Greg, and myself. And the flight had been delayed. And
Like they always are.
Right? And the whole plane started to grumble and mumble, and there was, a pocket of despair where somebody might miss their connecting flight, and then there was another, blip of, well, what if there's a God forbid, a terrorist of some sort? Why is our plane being, there's a lack of transparency. So now humans jump to worst case. Some humans jump to worst case scenario. And my wife and I had the opportunity to kind of muse on the fun capacity that if Scott and Greg were with us, Scott and Greg would immediately start to rummage in their pockets and their carry-ons. Can I find a paper clip? Can I find some Scotch tape, some duct tape, and
Some bubble
gum, and an old T-shirt, tourniquet that they'll repair a fuel line with, and so on and so forth. And they would start to communicate among each other. And then all of a sudden, Greg would get up and he would be the guy, and he would grumble, blah, 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 I'm fix this darn plane because I'm not going to be late, and so on and so forth. And Scott would get up and he would say, it's okay, folks. Like, there is a delay, but we're trained professionals and we can fix this so that we're all going to get there, in a swimmingly good capacity, right? And Grandpa Scott would calm all of us, and Greg would focus in. Now, I share that in this capacity because, of course, as Scott already said, just accept the duck, say thank you, and move on with life. That might be not your nature, right? But in that scenario, Greg, I think sometimes it's lost on people. Greg is not blaming the world per se. Greg is not being negative towards an individual necessarily. He is accepting the nature of events and understanding that in that moment, he has the capacity to change it for the better as of the plane.
Yep.
And I want that to be explicitly clear that you might not be sunshine and rainbows. You might not be Grandpa old man Scott Brown and want to calm the masses. You might not even really want to accept that duck. But there comes a moment where we accept the circumstances. I've done my pre-check of my Jeep. I thought I aired it up well. I was not driving like a maniac on the trail, and I still managed to get an 11-foot, 6-inch diameter log jammed up underneath my suspension. Does that sound familiar?
That sounds really familiar.
I wonder who could have done that.
No idea.
And you still ended up being temporarily that guy on the trail.
Not only that, that's another good example. When that did happen, there was not short of like 20 people with 20 opinions on how to get this log out of the Jeep.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
And in that situation, I come down and I looked at the situation. I listened to the 40 experts that were looking at the vehicle.
That's, I mean, this is all true.
That's because that happens on the trail of life.
And then I was like, am I going to add to this conversation or am I going to be 41 opinion?
Right.
And obviously my biggest thing at that point was to
He was like, I've got a purple strap. We've got this.
well, that did happen. But anyway, the power of the purple strap. Anyway, my biggest thing was that open the trail as quickly as possible, not screw up Jeff's Jeep in the process.
And it was right between the brake lines. I mean, you couldn't have placed this log there better if you wanted to,
right.
without causing damage. So the intricate nature of removing it in a way that did not cause that damage.
Yes. And nothing boils my blood more than someone coming in and I am the expert and I am going to impose my opinion onto you. No.
Right.
Go up gently and kindly say, hey, I noticed this. Maybe if you do that, that's better. If they don't take your advice, hey, man, you did your best. Walk away. Let them do their thing. Even if they screw up their vehicle, that's their decision. That's their project. That's their Jeep. When you go up and you just keep going, oh, no, you did this wrong. No, you did that wrong. You're not making friends.
And I suppose that was part of my scenario is it's not always about making friends though,
No,
right?
it's not.
Yeah,
But
the question
But it's also not about making enemies.
and so my wife put here, you can still be part of the greater solution,
Absolutely.
right?
Correct.
And it makes me think of, most recently, and most people know my, kind of rambunctious nature of sorts. And while you two would have handled it in that particular capacity, I really would have been, attempting to, in the most charming and playful way possible, goad people on within the plane and create sing-alongs. And meanwhile, over here, potentially puppeteering some other type of, potential fix or logistics process, right? But much like
something
that,
that you've never talked about is if now that you've added me to the scenario,
how you would behave in this
I'd
one.
be collecting money for the repairs.
You would be, you'd be crowdsourcing. You'd be crowdsourcing for expedited repairs.
Well, guys, I actually found that we get this little small plane that will be a connection flight, or we have this giant vehicle. I found a tour bus that we can use.
Oh God, that's so true.
Who on this plane can drive a bus?
The greatest showman would be organizing people, collecting funds.
And
You five are over here.
and when nobody could drive the bus, Jeff would be like, "Fine, I'll just drive the bus."
I'll figure it out.
Yep.
So, it reminds me there was a trail ride event this fall, and these folks did not know how to use their quicker disconnects.
Yeah. It
And
happens.
they were somebody else had taken them off before the trail ride. They were done, ish, air quotes. They thought they needed to throw them right back on immediately. They just were kind of none the wiser. They didn't know what they didn't know. And thus ensued a whole group of people trying to figure out how to make these disconnects. Because, sometimes if you're not on quite level ground, you got to push down on this side and pull up on that side and jimmy it
Quick,
around a little bit.
PSA, mad scientist tip. If you're in that situation, you open your door. Hopefully you have doors. You're not Jeff. And you use that to pull down or on either side that you need to move the Jeep. It makes it super easy to move an unhooked Jeep.
Gives you a lot of leverage because you don't need to move it that much.
If your doors are off, just have someone stand on the passenger side.
That
or the driver's
too.
Side, whichever
Yeah, I was
side.
going to say.
Which is also why Jeff likes those Jeep surf.
Yep.
So I stood around, and the thing is, I didn't need to. There was a sufficient attempt at repair.
There was plenty of experts in the group.
Now, with that said, they were not doing it how I would do it.
Correct.
Right? And I think that at that point in time, you have to ask yourself, is this the fight worth fighting? Right?
Yes.
I'm standing in the lemonade line and, it's hot. It's 11,000 degrees. I am low blood sugar and, the person in front of me, their card is not working. Is this the fight that I'm worth fighting?
I think the best example that we have in recent years is at Bantam, where there was absolutely someone trying to back a vehicle into a booth. And the person was doing an okay job at it. But then the experts had to come in and be like, you're not doing it right. You're not safe. You're not this. And they actually made it less safe because they overcomplicated it.
Yep.
That absolutely happened.
And the Jeep still wasn't parked well.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
It wasn't. And, and that was a peculiar situation because there was a lot of people who got very excited in that moment.
They did.
They just needed, and it goes back to a little bit to the firefighter EMS.
We just kind of sat back. We're like, we're just going to watch at this point.
Right.
Like, there's no point in trying to get involved when they're already excited.
And that firefighter EMS, one of the first things they teach is you don't run into the scene of an accident or enter your scene of incident, right? And they do that because you need to be able to take a breath and be aware of your surroundings and observe first and foremost.
Yep.
And I caution everybody to take that approach when it comes to not being that guy on the trail.
Everything.
Because we can't correct that guy on the trail as kind of an umbrella because we can't control those around us, right? And ultimately, I think there is then I can picture this conversation I've had so many times with people in my head. Yeah, Neil, but what happens when this person is just out for they're out for number one and they are honestly being dangerous and being a jerk themselves, right? And that is then the challenge to this specific conversation.
100%. But in that situation, in my opinion, again, friendly mad scientist PSA, you observe, you see them act a fool. You then find someone of authority to let them know about the act of fool. You don't need to actually go in there and be the force.
With exception, if you see a blatantly safety situation where somebody is going to get hurt or killed,
Yeah.
then by all
that's
means,
different.
you need to step up and say something. But don't do so in a way that just creates more issue because I've seen it where someone stepped up, hey, you better stop what you're doing before you run this person over, and the driver is now agitated and hits the gas harder.
Correct.
And I guess at that point in time, the conversation, it does go back to that big campaign that we had 20 some years ago, see something, say something, right?
100%.
Because we had that campaign as a society because of these situations, because we can't control, air quotes, the bad guys, right? If we just do a gross generalization and understand that there is a time where you're not intentionally being the bad guy. You didn't know that this component was going to fail on your Jeep, despite the fact that everybody else was like, your tie rod is wiggly iggly, and you decide to drive on the road anyways.
Don't
right?
drive that. You're going to kill somebody. Okay, bye.
And the guy leaves anyways.
Yeah.
Which happened to us last week, folks. There does come a point in time where that's going to happen. And I think that without being an isolationist, you do have to take the approach of how do I insulate myself and those that I am able to help from this scenario, right? Am I able to move my vehicle, which there's been a number of times at shows, specifically for us on the commercial end of things, where we've gone out and we've seen that somebody's having trouble parking or getting their truck and trailer in. We just go and move our Jeeps.
Yep.
Yes, it is inconvenient to us, but quite frankly, I'd rather take the inconvenience of moving 2 or 3 items within my booth instead of an insurance claim or tempers flaring or some other type of cattywampus experience.
And oftentimes, we've moved the vehicles specifically because that person didn't know how to drive their rig that they're bringing in.
That's exactly correct.
And instead of going, well, you're an idiot, you shouldn't be driving that, we just go, hey, we'll give you some room, we'll make it easier for you.
100%.
Just help them out.
And that, while that doesn't seem like that hard of a concept, I understand when you're already stretched thin and you're like, man, I just wanted to sit down. I just wanted to eat my food. I've been in the lemonade line for 10 minutes already while they ran across the festival to get more lemons from the other lemonade stand.
Yep.
And now I have to deal with this person who's trying to cut in front of me. And I really want to just go, crazy on them.
Yep.
It is this conversation about the things that uniquely made us as Americans unique back in the day, is this unification. What are we together in this for? Right. And going, you know what? You're having trouble parking your Jeep. That's a you problem.
Yep.
But the me problem is in case you hit me or
Right.
you damage my display for the weekend or my campsite. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, for those of you who will be at a campsite at any of these events throughout the summer, there comes a point in time where you have to have enough resolve to go, you know what? Yes, I'm going to have to inconvenience myself for a minute or two, but it is actually in a manner to be self-preserving for me and mine.
Mm-hmm.
And, that is going to be, to me, one of the only valuable assets to making sure that somebody who is being disrupting or disrespectful or whatever can't have more negative consequences on you than they already do.
Yep.
I would love to know what other people thought as far as how is a way to be tolerant and or without just, punching them right in the face, which I know a number of us would like to do.
And Chris was in the comments saying, drop breadcrumbs of advice and then fall back to being a spectator. You're not to be some kind of super Jeep hero. And that is basically what you
100%.
were saying that happened at Trailfest.
Correct.
So the other thing that we should talk about is Windshield Defense.
Oh, yep.
They absolutely are sponsoring this episode along with a series of episodes and have a product that is really helpful to Jeeps where we know windshields are constantly breaking. So
Can definitely make you frustrated.
Especially because when I'm running down the road, nothing irritates me more as my frustrated truck driving experience than somebody who has a blatantly unsecured load who's commercially employed
Yes.
hauling that load, right?
Absolutely.
I understand.
Stuff falling off of it as you're driving behind it.
Absolutely. And I understand that, that the average, homeowner or individual who's just loaded up their trailer with some wood chippings or some twigs or some gravel, because they're just doing it once or twice. I'm more forgiving of you than I am a person who's making money by every turn and trip they take with some gravel or some, peat stone or whatever, and it's unsecured and it comes off the truck and it gets me in the windshield.
Yep.
Right? So Windshield Defense is a triple layer protection product that applies to your windshield like a screen protector for your phone.
Yes.
So that in the situation where we have a less than desirable catalyst and something has come off, that my day's not ruined by a broken, chipped windshield when that pebble or twig or whatever flies off that load. And worst case scenario, it does get schmutzed up and something does become damaged on that initial layer or the currently exposed layer. You actually can go on there, and since it's triple layered, you actually peel it off.
Yep.
You do a full peel off, and you have 2 more screen protectors.
Yes.
And all 3 screen protectors are intended to last almost 2 years, depending on how subjected to damage they get.
Right.
Yep.
And so it's a way that when and as needed, you can be on the defense, insulating yourself from the other yahoos out in the world.
Especially when we're in a world where windshields can be upwards of $1,000 now.
Oh my gracious, thousands of dollars. Those of you who have the adaptive cruise control in the latest JLs and JTs.
Holy cow.
I am just boggled. And then what we are under the impression is that with a taser, we can turn off adaptive cruise, which should allow us to install any piece of glass that fits in that hole, right? Except for
a lot of companies are saying they're not allowed to because it's a safety issue.
it's a safety issue because
They
that
have
adaptive
to.
cruise system is integrated to the safety systems.
Correct.
And
Now, we know that we can shut it off, but as far as getting someone to install it, you're not going to SafeLight or any of those major companies because it's a liability to them.
Correct.
Yep.
And if you want a leak-free windshield,
That's kind of your choice.
it's kind of your thing. So that's where a product like Windshield Defense by Racing Optics makes the most sense in insulating yourself from that process.
And I see Charles says he needs two new windshields. So if you are going to be putting a new windshield on, that is the time to do this. The product discount code on windshielddefense.com is SFJ20. That gets you 20% off. Kind of a great time to do it.
Kind of switching back to those gears and just on my general rant, despite the fact that we fell off the rails a few times, I'm going to read Joe Smith's. A lot of things can be done easier by just smiling while you're doing it in that act in it, then act like you're angry. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you a story when we were at SEMA last. And my wife and we had a girlfriend with us, and then Jeffrey was there because he's actually, once again, the reason why that we got in trouble, per the usual.
Well,
and
that did happen.
Greg, right?
That did happen.
So, and this is absolutely nothing to do with Jeeps, other than the fact that we're there for SEMA.
I was going to say, it didn't even have to do with SEMA, honestly.
We were out because we were checking out this place called Area 51, which is like it's restaurants and shops and entertainment spaces and whatnot. Okay, and we went into the event. It's got like installation art and fun lights and quirky stuff.
Super cool, honestly.
And we went in at, I'm going to make something up, like 7 o'clock to grab dinner at this local burger joint. It was delicious food. We had a great experience.
Yeah.
And we went in. There should have been a line. They have a door call.
I think the easiest way to put it is think of it like walking into the center of a mall and you have all the store layouts, the restaurant layouts.
You have a large center kiosk like they used to do in the store, where there might be a store in the middle and the aisleways went down either side.
Correct.
Right? And there is
the public bathrooms are at the front of this
at the very front once you
area.
walk in through the double doors. And outside the double doors there is, would be like a bodyguard of sort, but when we entered, there wasn't, right? There was nothing exciting. And
yeah, we got checked for IDs and stuff at the very outside as we were walking in.
Right. We go in and we eat at the back of the facility. We get done eating, we wander around, we check out some of this adult space. And
then the girls go enjoy drinks.
It's like a cafe in the middle.
Yeah, it's a nice little open bar area. Really, really nice decorations, lit up trees.
And Jeff's like, I gotta go potty. So Greg and I, because he might need hand holding in the process.
Whatever.
Greg and
we're checking out like the vending machines that they have. They have unique vending options, stuff like that. It's really just an experience.
So we're done looking at that stuff, and we go back to where the girls are, and we go back past this like large main kiosk room, and there is now a rope across where we literally just came from.
Correct.
We never left the building.
Not even 10 minutes.
Not 10 minutes and not 20 feet away. Right. And I go back there, and there is a man that dwarfs me. And
that was pretty impressive.
Smiles at me the whole time. He tells me to pound salt, that I'm going to get back in there to see my wife and our friend.
Yeah.
Right? The whole time he smiles at me. Now,
he goes, you can go buy a ticket.
Yeah, you can go buy a ticket to get in there. I said, we literally ate there. I was just in there. He goes, well, now there's a rope here. Smiled the whole time.
Oh, it was
If he would have gotten agitated, irritated, if he would have put his hands up, if he would have escalated the situation, it could have gone south very fast.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, you were ready to throw down.
I at that point in time,
looking at his wife sitting right there. We're like, she's right there.
There's a point of
go back.
fight and flight that's happening there. You're keeping me separated from my wife. There's this. There's so many scenarios. This is so crazy. I've never been in a moment like this the whole time. And he smiled the whole time. He's like, yeah, you can go get a ticket. And I was just like,
yep, go get a ticket.
Ultimately, he did not escalate on his end, despite the fact that, in a sense, he was the aggressor, because he, as a company, they were having a private party, and all of a sudden, a moment on the clock had hit. And now you had to have a ticket to enter this back space, regardless. And the quirky thing is, we didn't have great cell phone signal in there, so I wasn't able to reach my wife really well right away. I mean, it was a worst case scenario. But he never escalated, not once, even though he was kind of the aggressor. He was kind of a jerk about it. He smiled the whole time.
He was the best kind of jerk about it, because you couldn't do anything. He just sat there smiling.
Do anything. I couldn't do anything. So, to articulate Joe Smith, sometimes you just need a smile, and you just have to kind of formulate your opinion in your head, and you recognize you're not going to be that guy on the trail, despite there are other people on there. And I would have loved to have punched that guy in the mouth, but that wouldn't have made either of us any better position for ourselves, the night, the week of SEMA. And
Billy Joe says guys need help going to the bathroom so they have company when they get distracted and lost because they can't ask for directions or help.
That's true.
So true.
That is true. Amen to that. Folks, we really hope that the Jeep season, as it migrates up into the northeastern part of the United States, and we understand that we are globally listened to, and we appreciate wherever you're at in the world. And if you are traveling for events, or if you're just going into your local cafe for a cup of coffee, that you seriously consider all of your surroundings and the incidents that you are exposed to so that you are not that guy on the trail.
As a final note, Daddy Jeep just said, if you're prepping for Bantam, bring a boat.
Next time, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on. Wasn't ready.
Don't forget the lag delays thing. So we're probably hot mics still.
We absolutely are hot mic.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, I just know I get a number of people, and I love people who help us with production
But
notes. They
that
like
we-
side text me.
Hey, you cut off.
Hey, you cut off again. And I'm like, yes, we did.
Yeah.
That's because we change something every time.
Yep.
And
Constant improvements.
constant improvements.
Speaking of which,
Okay.
Oh.
so my weekend updates is a lot of building update. So I shanghaied Jeff and Greg to come over after work Saturday.
Like an hour left on Saturday. Hey, what are your plans this weekend? You want to come help site prep? Yeah. Could you give me a little more notice? let me check with the wife, see what we had going on.
So
We're good.
anyways,
Right.
so they came over, and in true fashion, me and Jeff are just kind of trying to figure it out. Greg had finally had enough of that. He pulls out lasers and receivers and string, and origami happened, and geometry and everything else. And we finally got everything set up.
Drama tree.
Drama tree. Drama tree happened.
It could be.
Drama tree. That's fine. That's fine.
And
I'm choosing to smile right now.
well, it can be geometry.
Nope, no drama. No drama here.
So we got that all accomplished. Realized we need a lot of fill, a lot of concrete, a lot of stuff. It's fine.
It's not fine.
It's
It's
not
so
fine.
expensive right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I'm so frustrated by
Yep.
our need to collect projects.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then go over on the Sunday. My wife had inappropriately said, hey, I saw a friend needs moved this couch. We have a truck. We have a trailer. We can help them.
Have a truck, will travel.
I said, yep,
Okay.
I agree with you. It was one of those things they have gone on and done a PSA and like, hey, I need help. Of course, 80,000 people go on and give opinions. And then when they actually need the person to assist, nobody
shows
shows
up.
So me and a few other friends, we convoy our Jeeps. We go in, we procure the couch, we deal with.
This is a pretty serious couch. Is this a code word for something? I feel
I'm
like
wondering.
there's more to this story.
And it's so fitting with his conversation of what we had today because it was very narrow residential street with a very narrow driveway. I took my car trailer because that was the easiest thing to
Only
take.
thing could have been better is if it also was a narrow opening to the door and a very large couch.
Pretty much. And it's literally a electronic motion couch. This person that we were doing it for has a disability, so she needs something that is able to move on its own.
Sure.
It's heavy, that kind of stuff. And I get the trailer backed in there. Yes, it took me a couple shots to try to run over their yard and not that kind of scenario. I literally had to go into the neighbor's drive, across the street, and back in straight. Did not sideswipe their car.
Good.
And the very first thing out of the guy's mouth is, I see you back up like I do. Ho, ho, ho. Now, in that situation, I could have been like, you're a blankety blank, which is what I was thinking in my head. Or I could smile and go, yep, it's a tight driveway. And that's what I chose to do.
Right.
We were able to load the couch, strap it all down, put a tarp on it. All the Jeep motto. Somebody brought a strap, somebody brought a bungee cord, somebody brought a tarp, got it all covered up. took it over to our friend's apartment. We're able to wedge it into the situation, plug it in, sit it down where she needed it to, all in one swift movement.
Nice.
It was pretty cool. So then after that, it just happened to be across the street from Menards.
Oh.
And my
just
wife's like,
happened.
we have a trailer. That's Menards.
And we have a Menards.
And we need building supplies. So
I got a picture that says, I see you're 1 ton and I raised you almost 2 tons.
Oh, God. Oh.
And I want to reiterate, I have had that much weight on a trailer behind my Jeep. It's when you put 2,000 pounds in the bed of the truck inappropriately.
this is Jeff flexing.
It is. I'm going to flex on that one.
So we got like 60 bags of concrete, which is, according to my wife's math, I have not double checked her. I don't really feel like I have to. It was like 3,800 pounds of concrete.
Okay.
When you put it on the tongue of the trailer on the front of the fenders, it
Not
makes
good.
the hitch touch the ground.
Oh dear.
If you put it on the back of the trailer, it picks the back tires of the truck up. But luckily, he was able to slowly slide it over the axles of the trailer, which everything calmed down and settled down. And I strapped it down and went about my business.
OMG. Oh,
Because it's a concentrated 3,800
Yes.
pounds. It's not spread
No.
out over the load.
So
Yes.
it was interesting. I had to embody my inner truck driver and inner load. But the great thing is, I had a great load guy. He literally had the back steer tires of the forklift off the ground multiple times, trying to get it moved around.
Sure.
Could have been mean. He's like, you know what? I'm here to try to assist you to do this cattywampus crap.
And but at the same time, you also could have been a jerk about telling him do this, do that,
64.
and
Amy
Yeah.
says 64.
64 bags.
and ultimately, that's the could have been a challenge. You could have also started that fire, and
100%.
you didn't.
And the funniest part is I got back in the truck afterwards. And of course, the kids are doing their thing. She's in there, I think, reading the book or something. I'm like, so what did the kids say when the truck squatted like
Nobody
crazy?
cared.
And
Nobody noticed.
Nope, it was fine.
Nope, they were
She's
just
like, I just clicked on the e-brake for you.
our kids and our families are used to us, right?
Yes.
You ever think about when my wife and I talk about the people that associate with us in the most like nuclear way fashion? I'm like, man, there's something wrong with them the most because they're like, nope, they're unfazed by our shenanigans.
And I have to tell this part. So when we got ready for going to do this Saturday, Sunday, originally we were going to go to the local farmers market.
Mhm.
We started out in the 36 and it started raining, so we turned around and went back. And I
Are
was
you
like,
the guy who can't drive his car in the rain?
when the roof doesn't have leaks, I'll drive it in the rain.
Oh, okay. We spent a long time making fun of those guys.
We did.
Okay, I just
And if you'd like to sponsor the replacement of the insert of my top so that I can drive it in the rain, I will drive that sucker in the rain. Anyway,
okay.
so we go back and I'm like, let's just get in the truck and we'll just slowly drive up that way because this is all burning time. Did we think about a jacket? No. Did we think about an umbrella? No. So we're 3/4 away. We were at the Madison. We're like, that's 59 degrees according to the Jeep. It's kind of cold.
Right.
This is the best time to go buy a jacket.
Oh,
So we all peel in the Goodwill. I'm gonna go find a hoodie.
oh God.
Evie finds a unicorn sweater. It's like great time to go do this. Could we have gotten upset? Yep, we could have. We got MF in this and that. Oh, I should have brought a jacket. No, heck with it. Just go find a jacket.
Yeah.
You never have too many hoodies. You never have too many sweaters.
Oof.
Worst case, put it in the truck for next time.
Yep.
'Cause guess what? We're gonna forget again.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yup.
Jeffrey, anything for you?
I mean, obviously, I did a lot of projects, and my wife got me a shirt to represent that.
I love this
It
shirt.
absolutely says, I fix things, but my real hobby is collecting projects.
And he's currently collecting people that have projects.
Correct. That was the running joke about that. But I did have a event planning committee meeting for our upcoming nonprofit music festival competition at Labor Day weekend, and highly productive. We met. It was probably 2.5 hours of meeting time, hashing out a lot of details, and it relates back to this. And one of my volunteers literally said, "Man, this guy thinks of everything," and I had to say, "No, I don't. I think of the things that you guys have suggested, and I compile it into a list." I'm not the one thinking of everything. I'm using everybody's advice, and we're making it a friendly experience. And that's why the volunteers are so willing to help out, because we're not, nope, this is how we're running it, that's it. No, I'm taking little bits and pieces from everybody, and we keep improving how we're doing things based on that.
Mm-hmm.
So we, figured out a lot of things. We've got over 30 competitors signed up and confirmed to compete that weekend. We've got 2 major bands, paid acts for free concerts. We've got some other volunteer live and entertainment that's going to be performing before the competition starts. So it's just going to be a really fun weekend, and it's the same kind of thing that we're talking about with the Jeep events. We're just there to make sure everybody has a good time.
I dig it. And my weekend, as I mentioned, we had the truck show. It was one of our more low-key weekends, which is socially. So the value is that, obviously the house build that I started 3 years ago.
Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, and it is nice to look back on it. I had the opportunity. One of the things I did I did catch a quiet moment, either late Saturday night or early Sunday morning, was start to throw that photo album together, which we had been keeping really good photo albums, but it was valuable to go back and look at when that piece of property was just a abandoned lot that had sat dormant for about 15 years, and it was all overgrown, and there was trees and shrubs and 6-foot high grass and all that kind of stuff. And when we broke ground on it and rezoned it, and to see kind of how far it's come with gardens and outbuildings and a house on it, and equipment and that.
It's come a long way.
So, yeah, it's a testament to perseverance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are like, well, that's kind of crazy. But then you say, yeah, but you know what? I put every nail in it. I put up every board. I learned how to do siding. I've learned how to make a lot of mistakes in the process.
Yeah.
And so I had the opportunity to actually kind of get back to it this weekend a little bit, and just kind of enjoy that, that forward march.
I do want to jump into the comments, because there's a lot of interesting comments. First of all, Chris was saying 64 times 80 is 5,000 pounds. Chris, just to put you at ease, they were 60-pound bags, because Scott doesn't know how to buy 80-pound bags and save money. My wife said that we have so many Jeep hoodies from stops, and the Jeep is in quotes because they're just hoodies that we keep in the Jeep.
Sure, rando.
Or we try to, and then we forget to put them back in after we wash them. You don't have Jeep accessories already packed in the Jeep. Come on now. That's Justin calling you out, Scott.
Calling you out for not having sufficient Jeep hoodies.
That's fair.
Billy Joe saying never enough hoodies. Justin saying I got so many hoodies. Got a poncho in my glove box. So just lots of little comments.
Obviously, because I don't take the top off, I'm not prepared. I apologize to my Jeep community.
That's right, because you're basically a car owner.
Yeah.
Who likes
35s and 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, who likes 4-wheel drive and a Swiss Army knife.
And I'm excited for one of Neil's updates. I'm going to do it for him, because this is my notice to my wife, because we have this thing, me and Neil,
Correct,
of red tractors versus green tractors and maybe orange tractors sometimes, because
Yes.
Gotta get rando.
Yeah.
He has an affinity for or bright red things.
Yes.
For some reason, they
Yes.
always have to be red
Yes.
or gray.
Yes.
Because he had a yellow tractor and it did him wrong.
It did, and I will never own a
Dirty.
yellow tractor again. Yeah, no, I had, after a very long search, finally had the opportunity to get into the best case scenario. My wife actually found this one, a zero turn.
That is red.
That is red.
Has a really cool seat.
It's a reason. You're very jazzed up on that seat. You've mentioned the
racing seat.
multiple times. Yeah. It was, we have a lot of acreage to mow, and obviously what Scott is alluding to is Scott and I have gone so far between tractors and children and marriages and houses. Our things happen within a very nominal period of time. So this is, if you're following along close enough to the podcast, I have purchased the zero turn, that should last me a few years going forward at this point. Within a nominal time frame, Amy, this is your warning. You guys will be buying a zero turn as well.
I mean, that's the way it works. You got the big tractor, he got the big tractor. I mean, it's
Yep. Our lives
but
lovingly parallel each other.
That being said, you're also on deck to get a Gladiator.
I am on deck to get a Gladiator, and one of our good customers listed his for sale the other day. It is a beautiful, fully built Jeep named Natasha. Has done a bunch of 101, 102 classes.
Yeah.
The thing is actually tried and true, totally proven.
Oh, and it's a gorgeous build.
I think it has onboard air.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's got a whole bunch of accessories. It's been upgraded 11 times. And I know he's ready to part with it because he and his wife have multiple Jeeps and they're ready for something different in their life. And I was seriously considering Natasha. It's just the wrong color. So it's a kind of a tan, right?
Really-
Yeah.
Yeah, he really likes red.
And I really like red, black, or
black.
silver. And that's kind of where my color palette lays. I keep thinking like, a blue car would be kind of cool, or a yellow, and
doesn't have its
Tuscadero
heart.
pink. And I'm just like, you know what? Red, black, or gray. It's where I'm at. So if you want Natasha, there's a really trick, fully built JT that's going to be on the market very soon.
Amy's saying, why? We don't need a new tractor. Well, there it is.
The belly deck of the tractor, Scott made a little faux pas. And when you're mowing, you've got the buckets, you got the backhoe. It's not as tight and nimble
boy.
as a zero turn. And think of how much more time you guys could have together if you had a zero turn. Or in the case of my wife and I, she mows in the most adult fashion possible while I'm tractoring. It makes for like love, love and tractors. It's like a whole thing itself.
Wow, I didn't realize we were turning this into a romance.
I'm selling it for Scott right now.
Yeah. So maybe a rom-com probably. But so anyways, this weekend is Bantam.
Yes.
We are going to be podcasting in the booth Saturday at 10:19. So that is something you don't want to miss. Come by the booth, hang out. We'll have the PA speakers set up so you can hear us live in person as we're doing the recording.
We will not be live
On
on
Facebook.
the internets.
Yep.
Right? We will be
Not on YouTube,
a
not on
pre-recorded podcast, but we will be projecting the sound out to the peoples.
Yep.
And we encourage you to stop by and make faces at us in the process.
What are we asking people to bring us? Last year we asked for coffee cake and we were overwhelmed by coffee cake that was in a box. We want
Yeah, this is the meat exchange, and it cannot be store-bought, prepackaged, beef sticks or beef jerky or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This is the meat exchange. Take that as you see fit.
Oh boy.
And we will
I'm
be sending out the e-blast.
A little scared of this.
We'll
one.
be sending out the e-blast.
You better bring a good cooler. That's all I can say.
And that is
good cooler
that's,
and good grill.
I don't know that we're going to be grilling the meat right then and there, but we'll see how that plays out. But the great meat exchange of 2025 is what's on tap.
Somebody's donating a grill in that because maybe something could be arranged with sharing.
Until next time, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.